Okay, we're going to start by painting some fabric. So the most important thing is to get your paint to water ratio really, really diluted. And I will tell you that I'm using a clay-based paint as opposed to a chalk-based paint. This is just an empty container that I'm using to mix it in. This is not the brand that I'm using. I am using mud paint, which is a clay-based paint. You could also use DIY paint, which is also a clay-based paint. You can tell on my fingers that that paint is super, super pigmented. It's like a dye. The paint will dye the surface. I actually did a 2-to-1 ratio at first to see how it would be. Then I did a 3-to-1. So basically 1 part paint to 3 parts water. You want your paint to be really runny. Once you get that done, you're going to go ahead and take a mister and you're going to spray the heck out of your fabric. This helps so much because if you don't do this, this paint's going to soak right in. You want it to be pretty saturated with water to make it easier. Do you see how drippy that is? That's what you want. So 3 parts water, 1 part paint. And you're going to start painting. This is kind of like that crushed velvet, very old vintage chair that I'm painting. Make sure you get it inside all those creases, all the buttonholes, all the gatherings, everything. This is not going to dry crunchy. It's not going to be crunchy. I get asked that a million times. It's not going to come off onto my clothes. It is phenomenal. This blue chair had lots of stains on it, and I just didn't like the color of it. This color that I am using is called forest green. It is a very deep green. Like I said, I would not recommend using the chalk-based paints. I would recommend the clay-based paints. DIY paint, mud paint is another brand, not as popular as DIY. I actually retail both of those paints. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. I will link my website in the comments. But your friend with this is your spray bottle. Your surface must be wet. This will help your paint from actually just absorbing in and just sucking it all up. It'll kind of stop it. So basically, I'm just using my Klingon brush to apply the paint. And it's really not taking that much. It's water and paint. Water and paint. We're basically dyeing the fabric. So we're going to start letting it dry. When it dries, we're going to go ahead and take a piece of sandpaper. Yes, my friends, a piece of sandpaper. The same way that I would use on a wooden piece of furniture. I'm not worried about the wood on this furniture right now because I will paint it afterwards after I'm all done. And it'll just be fine. So we're going to just go over the steps again. You're going to mist your surface. Make sure that it's wet. You're going to apply your diluted paint and try to use a clay-based paint because it has so much pigment in it. It's almost like a fabric dye. You're going to brush it on, and we're going to do 2 coats. But for this video purpose, I'm just going to show you the first coat. It actually, as you can tell, covers really well. Of course, if I was trying to use a white or something, it would be a lot harder, but I'm using kind of a darker color than the original blue. And this is a rocking chair, so it keeps moving. Isn't it fun? So I'm just taking a sanding sponge and I'm going to get wet, and I'm just going to go over the top of it while it's wet. That's why my hands are so green. What this is going to do is move the nap of the fabric so that the paint gets on both sides of that material, right? When you brush one way, you have to brush back again. It will help get into the nap of that fabric. Use your brush again, add some more paint if you missed on any spots. It's just this easy. And like I said, it's not going to dry crunchy. It'll dry soft and smooth because you're going to sand it. The sandpaper is what is going to make it soft, smooth, and supple. Believe me, it works. I've done many pieces of furniture this way, and this is way cheaper than paying somebody to upholster this chair. This chair would probably be $400 to reupholster. So with about 16 ounces of paint, I could do the whole thing, right? It just takes time and patience. Now, it will dry. It's not going to be mildewy because it's wet. It will dry. Let it dry overnight. I will sand it again, and start, basically doing the same thing. Gonna wet the back. Same thing. Fine mist sprayer. See that blue? The blue looks great, but really close up and in person, had some light spots. It had some dirt. I mean, I cleaned it first, but I mean, still, I vacuumed it and then I kind of wiped it down and got any crumb remnants or anything on it, any food, any little things. This chair was in really definitely good shape. But your spray bottle is your friend. Your spray bottle is what's going to keep your piece from getting too crusty. Do you see how watery that paint is? Do you see how smooth it goes on? Right? This is a rocking chair, so it's going to move a lot. I didn't have any way. I should have blocked it up. But look at immediately in the first coat, how well it covers. Okay? Like I said, the key to this success is when it starts to dry is take that fine sanding block. It's like a 220 grit and just go over it. What that's going to do is open the fibers again. You don't want to do it so hard that you rip the fabric. A lot of these pieces are super old, so you want to be careful that you don't rip that fabric because it can fray really easy. This is probably a 1920s chair. So let the paint dry, get the fabric, the paint moving into the fabric with a soft sanding sponge. About 220. I wouldn't go any coarser than a 220. A 320 would work. A 400 would be just fine, because basically what it's going to do is soften up those fibers. There's no need to add fabric softener. I've heard people do that. I've never done that. It doesn't. To me, this paint is such a good thing. It's going to stick. It's going to dry. And if it does get coarse, when it is dry, I'm just going to take that same sanding block and I'm going to sand over the fabric. What this will do is the paint will stay in place and it will re-energize the fabric and break up any hard chunks within the nap of the fabric, right? It's just going to be awesome. Now I'm going to work in a second coat to this, because I will say where the creases are in the fabric, that's where it's harder to get it. You've got to really open the creases on that. So I got a little bit of a smaller brush this time so I could get in between those little crevices, because you won't ever see it until you sit in it and then it will open up, especially where the buttons are too. That you just need to kind of open it up and just get in between there. So 2 coats of paint is sufficient. You can seal this, and you can do this the same way. What I prefer to do is you can use an oil-based wax, like DIY's wax, or an oil-based wax like DIY wax would work really good. Another thing that work good is to take a top coat, such as a Dixie Belle top coat, a DIY top coat, and water it down the same, like the 3-to-1, okay? And then you could put that on there. Now, right now, the chair is totally dry. I've waited, next day, it's totally dry. So I'm taking my sanding sponge and I am just going over the fabric. This is opening the nap. Now, when I feel it, it's super soft and smooth. I'm not kidding you. It's sandpaper, paint, and water. How amazing and fabulous is this? Interestingly enough, it's just like doing a piece of wooden furniture. You sand it, you paint it, you seal it. Same thing with this. I did do a chair that I painted. I didn't seal at all, and none of the paint came off. I will say that with this darker color, it's not that the paint's coming off. It's more of like the dust from the sanding is coming off. So I did end up sealing this one with a top coat that I just watered down, did the same thing on the top as I did with the paint, put it on, sanded it, let it dry. This is the best way to change your upholstery. Isn't it fantastic? Who's going to try it? Do you have the nerve to try it? Really? What have you got to lose? Because if you're going to reupholster anyhow, what the heck, right? This is fabulous. The chair is so soft. I'm not kidding. So soft. Now, the only place that you have problems is inside of those creases, because you kind of got to get the sandpaper inside of that. But if you just keep sanding the nap, and like I said, don't do it too harshly. That's why I use a block, because it's easier for me to control. Just try to be careful because a lot of these older chairs had some threadbare areas and you don't really want to sand a hole through it. So, it's just been so fun. And then next, I'll sand the wood part of it with a regular piece of sandpaper. I took a 150 and I'm going to sand the wood, and then I'm going to apply a coat of paint to that. And guess what? I didn't get a picture of the finished piece, but you get the idea, you guys. Paint, water, sandpaper. So 3 parts water, 1 part paint, and I really would use a clay-based paint because they're super pigmented, more than chalk. Paint a coat, let it dry, sand it off, do the next coat, let it dry, sand it, sit on it. I mean, voila, right? So please subscribe to my channel. My website is tonatransformations.com. That's Tona. I will go ahead and link to the mud paint and the DIY paint in the description so you guys can go on my website and order whatever paint you want. The colors are amazing, and I did use forest green on this one from mud paint. It is such a gorgeous. I had just painted a piece of furniture with this color and I was just in love. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please let me know if you've tried this, if you're gonna try it, or if you have any questions. Love to help you guys. Once again, my name is Debbie Tona with Tona Transformations. And as I always say, go out and be fabulous. Hit subscribe and I'll be posting more videos soon. Thanks for watching.